At my father's funeral, the lawyer's voice trembled as he listed the gifts. My cousins and siblings received mansions, cars, and bank accounts that sparkled with numbers I couldn't even dream of. When it was finally my turn, he looked down, slid a small brown envelope across the polished mahogany table, and avoided my eyes. Inside, there was nothing but a single brass key, dull and heavy in my palm. The air grew cold, though the chandelier lights burned above us. My cousin Robert smirked, waving a thick document like a flag. "Guess that's all you're worth," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Laughter erupted, cruel and sharp, echoing against the marble walls. I wanted to disappear into the carpet, but my hand held tighter around the key. My chest burned, my throat ached, and still I forced myself to stand tall. The lawyer cleared his throat as if to move on quickly, embarrassed by my humiliation. Behind me, the coffin stood surrounded by flowers, the smell of lilies turning nauseating. My father's last farewell. And this was how I was remembered. I tell these stories because sometimes silence isn't enough. If you want to know what happened after this moment, the humiliation, the mystery, the secret that silenced them all, subscribe now. I share everything they never wanted me to reveal. I left the table without looking back, every laugh piercing me like glass. The brass key pressed into my skin, leaving a red imprint on my palm. Something about it felt intentional, almost alive. My father had chosen this for me, and he never did anything without meaning. In the hallway, I leaned against the cold stone wall, fighting tears. My sister passed by, clutching her folder of assets, diamonds dangling from her ears. She looked at me like I was invisible, not even pity, just nothing. That nothing cut deeper than mockery. I remembered the nights I had stayed in the office, fixing his books, answering late calls, handling angry clients when he was too tired. Decades of loyalty. And this was my reward. A key no one wanted. A secret or a joke? I couldn't tell which. The echo of their laughter followed me down the stairs, out to the gray sky where rain threatened to fall. My umbrella slipped in the wind, useless against the storm. I felt like a child again, small and unwanted, clutching something I couldn't understand. But the key was heavier than it should have been. It dug into my hand as if demanding attention. I turned it over, noticing faint initials carved on the side. EH7, my father's initials. My heart jumped, a tiny spark in the storm of shame. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was clinging to scraps because hope was all I had left. Yet that engraving pulsed in my mind. My father had always spoken in puzzles. He trusted symbols more than words. I went home that night, dropped the envelope on the table, and stared at the key under the dim kitchen light. Its edges caught the glow, sharp like a blade. The apartment felt too quiet, the hum of the refrigerator loud, mocking my thoughts. I poured myself a glass of cheap whiskey, but even the burn in my throat couldn't drown the question. Why me? Why only this? Why now? The weight of betrayal was heavier than the glass in my hand. On the television, news of inheritance scandals played, rich families tearing each other apart. I laughed bitterly. It felt like prophecy. My father had built his empire on control, on secrets. Maybe this key was his final game. I remembered the way he once told me, "The truth is always hidden in plain sight." His voice haunted me that night, slipping between thunder and the ticking of the wall clock. The truth. Was this key pointing to it? I searched my drawers for old files, photographs, anything that might connect. Dust covered my hands as I pulled out a box of papers. Receipts, blueprints, old letters. But nothing that screamed of EH7. Only the key staring back, demanding. Anger replaced sadness. I slammed my fist against the table, the sound sharp in the still room. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the empty walls, my voice cracking. The key rolled to the edge of the table, clinking against the wood. I picked it up again, pressed it against my lips, and closed my eyes. Somewhere, this belonged. Somewhere, a lock was waiting, and I had to find it, or drown forever in their laughter. Sleep never came. I turned all night, my fingers wrapped around the key under the pillow. It was my curse and my only weapon. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown, but to what? I couldn't guess. By morning, My reflection in the bathroom mirror looked like a stranger. Eyes red, jaw tight, desperation written across my face. I splashed water, but it did nothing. The key hung heavy in my pocket, dragging me forward. At work, I couldn't focus. Numbers blurred. Conversations slipped past me. I caught myself reaching into my pocket every 5 minutes, fingertips brushing the brass. My colleagues whispered, eyes darting. They saw something was wrong, but they would never understand. By evening, the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long. I sat alone at my desk, the key gleaming under the fading light. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. Something in me whispered that this was only the beginning. I opened the old filing cabinet in the corner, pulling out folders that smelled of mold and ink. My father's handwriting danced across yellowed pages. And then, a single slip of paper, tucked behind a ledger. Numbers, coordinates, a date. My hands trembled as I unfolded it fully, realizing this wasn't random. It was a path, a message, and it was meant for me alone. The room grew silent, even the hum of the lights fading into nothing. My father had left me the key, but now he had also left me a map, a treasure, or a curse. I didn't know. I clutched both in my hand, heart racing. But before I could process it, the phone on my desk rang. Loud, shrill, violent, unknown number. My breath caught. I lifted the receiver slowly, my voice unsteady. Hello? The line crackled, and then a man's voice, low and cold, whispered, "You have something that doesn't belong to you." My hand shook as I placed the receiver back on its cradle. The dial tone buzzed like a wasp trapped in my ear. My chest rose and fell too fast, the key slick with sweat in my palm. I stared at it as though it might burn me. Whoever that voice belonged to, they knew. The apartment seemed smaller, pressing in from all sides. Shadows crawled along the walls as the last light of day bled away. I locked every window, checked the chain on the door twice, but it did nothing for the fear that sat heavy in my stomach. My father's key wasn't just a puzzle anymore. It was bait. I tried convincing myself it was a prank. Maybe one of my cousins, still drunk on their inheritance, decided to mock me further. But the voice hadn't carried laughter. It carried danger. Cold, precise, intentional. My skin prickled, remembering the tone. I poured another glass of whiskey, my hand sloshing amber liquid onto the table. The glass rattled as I set it down, my heartbeat louder than the ticking clock. I stared at the slip of paper with the numbers. Coordinates. A date. What had my father hidden that someone wanted so desperately? The rain started, tapping against the window like impatient fingers. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a warning from the sky itself. I pressed the key to my chest, desperate for answers. My father had always spoken in riddles, but I never thought one would follow me into death. I kept replaying the call in my head, searching for clues in the tone, the static. Male, mid-40s maybe, no accent, just ice. And the words, "You have something that doesn't belong to you." But it did. It was mine. My father gave it to me. I sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, trying to breathe. My phone buzzed again, this time a text. Unknown sender. 3 words. Give it back. My chest tightened. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I looked out the window, half expecting someone to be standing across the street. A dark car sat under the lamppost, engine running. I froze. Had it always been there? My mouth went dry, and I pulled the curtains shut with one hard tug. Fear was one thing, but humiliation burned hotter. They had laughed at me once, stripped me of dignity in that room. I swore to myself it wouldn't happen again. Whoever was out there wanted this key, which meant it was worth more than all their millions combined. I needed answers. I opened my laptop, typed in the coordinates from the slip of paper. The map zoomed out, then in, until the screen showed a deserted property on the outskirts of the city. My father's name flickered faintly in the records. Edward Harrington Holdings, 1984. The breath caught in my throat. A warehouse, abandoned for decades. If the key didn't belong to my apartment or his office, it belonged there. The initials EH7 suddenly made sense. Not a code, a location. Edward Harrington, Building 7. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My father, always meticulous, had left this trail for me alone. Not my siblings, not my cousins. Me. and that meant only I could finish it. The thought filled me with both pride and dread. I closed the laptop quickly when I thought I heard a sound outside. A scrape along the hallway. My heart leapt into my throat. I pressed my ear to the door, holding my breath. Nothing. Just silence, thick as tar. Sleep wouldn't come. I kept the lights on, the key under my pillow, the paper in my pocket. Every creak of the building, every gust of wind made me sit upright. By morning, my eyes burned red, my skin pale, but determination burned in my chest. I couldn't tell anyone. Not my sister, not Robert, not the lawyer. They were part of the circle that mocked me. And if that voice was right, maybe they already knew about the warehouse. Maybe they were waiting for me to make the first move. At work, I stared at numbers that made no sense, signed papers I couldn't read. The world blurred around me. My boss asked if I was sick. I lied, said I hadn't slept. He nodded, uninterested, his pen scratching across the page. No one cared. No one ever had. I left early, the city humming with traffic and neon lights. My reflection followed me in every shop window, pale and tired, a man chasing shadows. I walked faster, convinced footsteps echoed mine. When I turned, no one was there. Back at my apartment, I sat on the floor with the key dangling from a string around my neck. My father's voice haunted me again. The truth is always hidden in plain sight. My chest ached as I whispered into the empty room. Then, show me. For the first time, I felt anger sharpen into resolve. Whoever threatened me didn't know me. I had spent my life in silence, enduring mockery. But not anymore. If this key was meant for me, I would use it, no matter the cost. I began packing a small bag. Flashlight, notebook, gloves. My hands moved with purpose, though my stomach twisted in fear. Each item clinked against the next, an orchestra of preparation. The warehouse would not wait forever. I checked the date scribbled on the slip of paper again. Tomorrow. My father had chosen tomorrow for me to find whatever was hidden, and tomorrow I would go. But as I zipped the bag shut, the doorbell rang. Sharp, urgent, slicing through the silence like a blade. I froze, breath caught in my chest. No one ever visited me. No one ever cared enough to come. I crept to the door, peering through the peephole. A figure stood there, tall, still, face hidden beneath the brim of a hat. They didn't move. They didn't knock again. They just stood, waiting. My pulse thundered in my ears. I wanted to scream, to call the police, but my voice stuck in my throat. The figure slowly raised their head. And then I saw it, a faint scar running down the left side of their face. The same scar I had seen in a photograph of my father's old business partner, a man I thought had died years ago. And he was at my door. My breath fogged the peephole as I stared at him, frozen in place. The scar glistened under the hallway light, a thin line carved into weathered skin. My mind screamed it wasn't possible, but my eyes refused to look away. He didn't knock again. He didn't leave. He just stood there, like a shadow with a pulse. I stepped back silently, heart hammering so hard it hurt. The key weighed against my chest, swinging on the chain like it knew danger was here. I held my breath, every instinct torn between running and opening the door. My father's old partner, a ghost from the past, had come back for something. My knees felt weak, but curiosity wrestled with fear. What if he had the answers I needed? What if he knew what the key unlocked? Still, another thought crept in. Darker. What if he was the voice on the phone? What if he had come to take it by force? The silence stretched. Finally, his hand lifted and pressed the doorbell again. The sound shrieked through the apartment, vibrating against my skull. I pressed my back to the wall, whispering to myself, "Don't open it. Don't open it." But my hand was already moving toward the knob. When I finally cracked the door open, the hallway smelled of old cigarettes and rain-soaked coats. He looked straight at me, his eyes sharp and colorless, cutting right through my lies. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he smiled, a slow, crooked thing that chilled me more than anger would have. "You look just like him," he said, voice low and steady. The words clung to the air like smoke. My throat closed. My father. Always my father. His shadow followed me even here, in the scarred face of a man who shouldn't exist. I swallowed hard, forcing sound from my dry throat. "You're supposed to be dead." His smile widened, as if I'd just passed a test. He didn't deny it. He only leaned closer, the brim of his hat brushing the doorframe. "Dead men don't knock on doors, son." His presence filled the doorway, heavy and suffocating. My fingers curled around the chain lock, every muscle ready to slam the door shut. But then he said it, the words that rooted me in place. "I see you found the key." My stomach dropped. He knew. He didn't even have to see it. He knew. The brass against my chest suddenly burned hot. My lips trembled as I whispered, "What do you want?" His eyes flickered to the shadows inside my apartment, and his smile vanished. "Not here. Too many ears." He stepped back, his shoes squeaking on the wet floor. "Meet me tomorrow night. Building 7. Bring the key, or you'll regret it." My body froze. He knew about the warehouse. He knew about the coordinates. The slip of paper in my pocket felt suddenly exposed, as if he could see through my skin. Before I could reply, he turned and walked down the hall, his footsteps echoing in steady rhythm. I stood there, trembling, until the sound faded into silence. Only then did I realize my hands were bleeding from how tightly I dug my nails into my palms. I shut the door hard, locked it twice, and slid down against the wood. My chest heaved as if I'd run miles. My father's secrets weren't mine alone anymore. Someone else carried the map in their blood. Someone dangerous. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak outside the window made me sit upright. Every shadow stretched into his silhouette. I kept the light on, staring at the key on the nightstand. Its brass edges caught the glow, reflecting secrets I couldn't yet read. When dawn came, pale and thin, I staggered to the bathroom. My reflection looked haunted. Lips cracked, eyes ringed in purple shadows. I pressed cold water to my face, gripping the sink until my knuckles whitened. The man in the mirror wasn't me anymore. He was someone chasing ghosts. At work, numbers swam before my eyes. I signed papers I didn't read, answered questions with empty nods. My colleagues whispered, throwing me glances heavy with curiosity. They didn't care what was wrong. They just wanted gossip. I clutched the key in my pocket, the only truth I had left. When evening fell, the city pulsed with neon and rain. I walked the streets with my hood up, head low, every step a drumbeat of dread. I could still hear his voice in my ear. "Meet me tomorrow night. Bring the key." My father's shadow stretched taller than the skyscrapers above. I returned home to find an envelope slipped under my door. No name, no address, just my shaking hands tearing it open. Inside, a photograph, black and white, grainy. My father and the scarred man, standing in front of Building 7. My father's arm rested on his shoulder like a brother. Scrawled across the back in jagged ink were 4 words. "He trusted me first." My breath caught, heart slamming against my ribs. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was betrayal, buried decades deep. I sat at the table, the photo in one hand, the key in the other. My father had trusted him once. Trusted him enough to share secrets I never knew existed. But something had happened. Something that left him with a scar, and me with a curse of brass. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a key to a building. It was a key to the past, to every lie my father told, every truth he buried. And now it was my turn to unlock it, or die trying. The night dragged on, each hour slower than the last. I scribbled questions in my notebook. What is in Building 7? Why me? Why not my siblings? What does he want? None of the answers came, only the echo of my father's voice. The truth is always hidden in plain sight. I tried calling my sister, but the line went straight to voicemail. Maybe she knew. Maybe they all knew. Or maybe she was just too busy celebrating her millions while I drowned in shadows. Bitterness curled inside me, bitter as the whiskey on my tongue. I checked the locks again, then again, until my fingers ached. Outside, the rain hammered the windows, a relentless drumbeat. I pulled the curtains shut, but the photographs still stared at me from the table, their frozen smiles a cruel reminder. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Another text. Same unknown number. Just 2 words this time. Don't trust him. My pulse spiked. Him? The scarred man? Or my father? Or both? The message blurred as tears stung my eyes. For the first time, I realized I wasn't just in danger of losing my life. I was in danger of losing my sanity. I paced the apartment, whispering to myself, I can't do this. I can't. But the key burned against my chest, reminding me that I had no choice. It was mine, for better or worse. By dawn, I had made my decision. Tomorrow night, I would go to Building 7. I would meet him, key in hand. But I would not walk in blind. I would be ready. I stuffed the photo and slip of paper into my bag, zipped it shut, and sat in silence. The city outside woke slowly, horns blaring, people rushing, life moving forward. But for me, time had stopped, and as the morning sun lit the edge of the photograph, I noticed something I hadn't before. A shadow in the background. A third man, half hidden, watching them both. And for the first time, I realized there was someone else in this game. Someone neither of them wanted me to find. The shadow in the photograph gnawed at me, more than the scarred man's warning, more than the threats. My father and his partner stood proud in front of Building 7, but behind them, barely visible, was another figure. Tall, blurred, almost erased by light. A ghost hiding in the edges. I stared at it until my eyes watered. My father had been meticulous, careful with every picture he allowed. If this one slipped through, it meant something. Someone else had been there the day the foundation of secrets was laid. And now, decades later, I was supposed to find him. I held the photo under the lamp, tracing the faint outline of the figure with my finger. The longer I looked, the colder my blood ran. Whoever it was hadn't wanted to be seen. But they had been. And my father hadn't destroyed the proof. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he wanted me to see it now. Sleep was impossible. My mind was a reel of questions and whispers, looping endlessly. The scarred man demanded I bring the key. The unknown number warned me not to trust him. And now the photograph told me of a third man who had stood in the shadows all along. I lit a cigarette I hadn't touched in years, the smoke curling into the air like ghosts escaping my lungs. My father had always said the world was divided between those who built empires and those who guarded doors. I was beginning to think he had left me the role of a guard. But of what? I tried to eat, but the food turned to ash in my mouth. I tried to shower, but the water felt like needles. My nerves were raw, shredded thin. The key against my chest thudded in time with my heartbeat, a constant reminder that I carried the weight of lives that weren't even mine. I pulled out my notebook, scribbling again. Scarred man, frater verleind, irain, frater partner. Third man, frater unknown. Father trusted scarred man once. Third man, enemy or ally. My handwriting shook, letters tilting into chaos. None of it made sense, but the act of writing was all that kept me from unraveling. The next evening arrived too quickly. The city bled into shadows, streetlights flickering awake. My bag was ready. Flashlight, gloves, notebook, photograph, key. Every step I took toward Building 7 felt like walking toward my own execution. The warehouse loomed at the edge of the city, skeletal and abandoned. Its windows were shattered eyes, its doors rusted teeth. Rain slicked the pavement, reflecting broken neon signs. I stood there, soaked and trembling, as though the building itself could swallow me whole. Inside, the air was thick with dust and oil, the smell of forgotten decades. My footsteps echoed too loud, betraying my presence. The beam of my flashlight cut through cobwebs and peeling paint. My father had built empires, yet here lay his ruins. At the far end, a metal door waited. Painted on its surface, barely visible through rust, were the same initials as the key, EH7. My breath caught, my father's mark, my inheritance, my curse. I pulled the key from my chain, its brass cold and slick. My hand shook as I slid it into the lock. The sound of tumblers turning echoed like gunfire. The door creaked open, screaming with rust. Behind it, darkness deeper than night. The scarred man's voice cut through the silence. I see you came. I spun, the flashlight catching his face. The scar was deeper than I remembered, twisting when he smiled. He stepped from the shadows, coat dripping with rain, eyes locked on the key still in my hand. You've grown into him, he said, his voice almost admiring. Same stubbornness, same eyes, He would be proud. The words struck deep, but the warning text buzzed in my skull. Don't trust him. My grip tightened on the flashlight, ready to swing it as a weapon. What's inside? I demanded, my voice rough. His smile faded, replaced by something heavier, darker. Truth. More than you're ready for. But you don't get to open it without me. His hand extended, palm open, waiting for the key. Every muscle in my body screamed to run. But the door was already unlocked, the path already chosen. I shook my head, clutching the key to my chest. My father gave it to me. Not you. His eyes narrowed, cold steel replacing false warmth. You think he loved you? His voice rose, bouncing against the walls. He left you scraps. He left me with everything. That key should have been mine. Spit flew from his lips as anger cracked his facade. For the first time, I saw desperation where arrogance had been. The warehouse trembled with thunder outside, as though the storm wanted to be part of the fight. My flashlight beam flickered, catching movement behind him. My heart stopped. A silhouette stood deeper in the shadows, tall, silent, watching. The scarred man turned, his own breath hitching. No, he whispered, fear dripping into his voice, his hands curled into fists, his entire body stiffening. Not you. Not here. The silhouette didn't move. It simply stood, like the shadow in the photograph had come to life. The beam of my flashlight quivered as I tried to focus. The figure stepped closer, boots crunching on broken glass. A hood covered his face, but the way he moved, confident, deliberate, sent ice down my spine. Who is he? I asked, my voice trembling. The scarred man didn't answer. His eyes darted between me, the key, and the shadow. Sweat glistened on his temple, despite the cold. Whatever this third man was, he terrified him. My chest heaved as the figure came closer. The scarred man backed away, his bravado gone. He whispered to himself, words I barely caught. We buried you. We buried you. My pulse thudded in my ears. Buried who? The figure stopped a few feet from me, the beam catching the edge of his mouth. Pale lips curled into something that wasn't a smile. And then, finally, he spoke. His voice was deep, hollow, dragging chills across my skin. Your father promised me everything. His words echoed through the cavernous warehouse, heavy with venom. And he gave it all to you. The scarred man lunged, grabbing my arm, hissing, Run! His nails dug into my flesh, dragging me back toward the door. But the hooded figure lifted a hand, and suddenly the air felt heavier, charged, as though the storm had slipped inside. Lightning flashed through the broken windows, illuminating all three of us. And in that single white-hot second, I saw the hooded man's face clearly. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone I had known my entire life. Someone who should have been buried with my father. It was my uncle, and he wasn't dead. My knees nearly buckled when the light revealed his face. My uncle, the man who had vanished when I was still a child, whispered about in hushed tones, declared dead after an accident no one dared explain. And now, here he was, breathing, moving, speaking, as if the grave had spat him back out. The scarred man still gripped my arm, his nails biting into my skin, dragging me backward. His eyes were wide, his voice cracked with fear. You don't belong here, he muttered, though I couldn't tell if he meant me or the figure before us. My uncle didn't move. His presence alone filled the space like smoke. My throat closed as I tried to form words. Memories of him at family dinners flickered in my head. His booming laugh, the way he'd wink at me when my father grew too strict, and then the day he was gone, swallowed by rumors of betrayal, fire, and money. He had been erased, but not forgotten. Impossible, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. My uncle's pale lips curved, not quite a smile, more like a warning. Nothing is impossible when it comes to Harrington blood, he said. The words slithered into my ears, both familiar and monstrous. The scarred man shoved me behind him, standing tall now, rage sparking in his eyes. You should have stayed dead, he spat. The warehouse vibrated with their history, heavy and suffocating. I pressed myself against the wall, clutching the key until it cut into my palm. My uncle tilted his head, his hood sliding back to reveal hair streaked with gray, eyes sharp and alive. "You tried to bury me," he said to the scarred man, voice steady as a blade. "But the earth never keeps what belongs to me." His gaze slid to me, pinning me in place. "And neither will you." I tried to step forward, but the scarred man's arm shot out, blocking me. His chest heaved, sweat glistening under the dim light. "Don't listen to him," he growled, but his voice lacked certainty. My uncle chuckled low, the sound rattling my bones. "You never told him the truth, did you?" My heart stuttered. "What truth?" I demanded, my voice breaking. Both men turned to me, their eyes filled with wars older than I could imagine. My uncle smiled again, softer this time, almost fatherly. "That key was never your inheritance. It was mine." The warehouse groaned as thunder shook the walls. Rain drummed the metal roof like fists. My stomach lurched, bile rising. Everything inside me screamed to run, but my feet were nailed to the ground. "You're lying," I said, though my voice betrayed doubt. My uncle stepped closer, each stride deliberate. "Look at it," he said. "EH7, Edward Harrington. But not for your father. For me. I was the seventh to hold the legacy. Your father stole it. He built empires on what was promised to me." The scarred man barked a laugh, cruel and bitter. "You were weak. He chose me. He chose us." He clenched his fists, his scar twisting with rage. My uncle's eyes flared, and for a moment I thought he might strike, but instead he whispered, "He chose no one. He used us all." The key in my hand seemed to grow heavier, hotter, as if it knew its true master stood before me. My chest tightened, panic clawing at my ribs. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my voice was gone, swallowed by the storm. "Why give it to me, then?" I finally managed, the words trembling. My uncle's gaze softened, almost pitying. "Because he wanted you to suffer like we did. He left you the curse, not the crown." The scarred man shook his head violently. "Don't listen. He's twisting it. The boy deserves to know, but not from you." He turned to me, his voice shaking. "Your father was not the man you thought. His words cut off when my uncle lunged forward. The two men collided with a force that shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling as fists met flesh, as decades of betrayal exploded into violence. I stumbled back, the key clattering against the concrete, echoing through the cavernous space. Both men froze at the sound. Their eyes snapped to the key lying between us. Silence, heavy and sharp, filled the room. Then, as if pulled by unseen strings, they both reached for it. I dove first, my fingers closing around the cold brass just as their hands collided with mine. Pain shot up my arm as they yanked, pulling me between them. I screamed, the sound raw and broken, but I refused to let go. "You'll die for it!" the scarred man shouted, his spit hitting my face. My uncle snarled, "No, he'll live for it, just like we did." Their tug-of-war tore at my shoulder, my bones creaking under the strain. In that moment, I saw it. A carving on the side of the key I had missed before. Not just EH7. Another set of letters, worn, but visible. AJ. My breath caught. My uncle's initials. The realization crashed over me like a wave. The key hadn't been for my father. It had been stolen, hidden, repurposed into a cruel inheritance for me. My uncle's blood ran in its metal, not my father's. My stomach turned to ice. I looked up, my eyes locking with my uncle's. He saw the recognition in my face, and his grip tightened. "Now you understand," he whispered, his voice thick with triumph and grief. "It was always mine. And now, through you, it comes back." The scarred man roared, pulling harder, veins bulging in his neck. "He'll never have it!" he screamed, his face twisted with fury. My body was the rope in their war, my bones splintering under their hatred. The storm outside cracked, lightning splitting the sky. In that blinding flash, I made my choice. I tore the key free, stumbling backward, chest heaving. Both men lunged, their hands clawing the air. "Stay away!" I shouted, my voice raw, echoing against steel and concrete. My legs shook, but I held the key high, as if it were a blade. My uncle's eyes glimmered with hunger. The scarred man's face twisted with rage. Both took a step toward me. The ground shuddered beneath us, dust raining from the ceiling again. Somewhere deep in the building, machinery stirred, ancient gears grinding awake. My stomach flipped. The key wasn't just a symbol. It was a trigger. Both men froze, their faces blanching as a low rumble grew louder, shaking the walls. My hand still clutched the key, glowing faintly in the flashlight's beam. My uncle's voice broke the silence, a whisper soaked in terror. "You've woken it." The scarred man's face drained of color. His eyes met mine, and for once, there was no rage, only fear. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" The walls groaned louder, metal tearing somewhere in the dark. The floor beneath my feet vibrated as if something massive was rising. My chest seized with dread, my lungs refusing air. And then, with a deafening roar, the concrete split open at the far end of the warehouse. Dust and smoke filled the air, choking me, blinding me. Through it, a shape emerged. Not a man, not a machine, but something buried for decades, finally awake. I stumbled back, clutching the key like a lifeline, as both men screamed in unison. The thing in the shadows was moving, and it was coming straight for me. The roar shook the marrow in my bones. The warehouse quaked, as if the earth itself wanted to spit the place out. Dust cascaded from the rafters, swallowing my flashlight's beam. Through the haze, I could barely see the shifting silhouette, colossal, mechanical, and alive in ways it shouldn't be. My uncle's voice cut through the chaos, ragged with terror. He buried it here. He thought it would never wake. His eyes, once burning with greed, now gleamed with dread. He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a beam of rusted steel. For the first time, I saw fear strip him bare. The scarred man grabbed my arm, nails cutting into my skin. His breath was hot and frantic against my ear. "Listen to me. Whatever happens, do not drop that key. If you do, it won't stop. It'll consume everything." His voice trembled. The certainty he once wore like armor had cracked. The floor groaned, a massive slab splitting open. From the darkness, gears larger than cars turned with a grinding wail, showering sparks. I shielded my eyes, coughing on the metallic air. My heart slammed as I realized it wasn't just a machine. It was a vault, a tomb, a prison. The sound of chains unraveling filled the warehouse. My uncle screamed, "Shut it down, you fool!" His words bounced through the metal, but his hands stayed frozen at his sides. He wanted the key, yet even he wouldn't move toward me now. That told me everything. My chest ached with every breath, the key searing against my palm. I wanted to throw it into the dark, to free myself from its curse, but the scarred man's warning drilled into my skull. If I let it go, the thing would not stop, and if I held it, I was its master, or its next victim. The dust began to settle, and the shape became clearer. A massive door, covered in bolts, chains, and symbols I didn't understand, slowly rose from the ground. Each link snapped with deafening cracks, sending vibrations up my legs. The lock at its center matched the brass key in my hand perfectly. My uncle fell to his knees, both hands clutching his head. Edward was mad. He swore he'd lock it forever. His voice broke, more a sob than a confession. "And now you, boy. You've undone his last barrier." The scarred man snarled, shoving past him. His hands shook, but his eyes blazed. "Don't you see? This is what we bled for. This is the legacy he stole from us." He turned to me, reaching. "Give it to me. I'll finish what he couldn't." I backed away, the key slick with sweat, my back pressed against the cold steel wall. "No," I whispered, my throat dry. My voice cracked, barely audible, but it echoed all the same. Both men stopped, their eyes widening as if the warehouse itself had heard my refusal. The massive door shuddered one last time, then halted, half-raised, groaning like something alive. The air went still, heavy with anticipation. I felt it before I saw it, a presence, ancient and suffocating, breathing through the cracks of its prison. Whispers slithered out, not in words I understood, but in feelings that sank claws into my skull. Hunger, rage, patience broken after decades of sleep. My knees buckled, bile rising in my throat. It wasn't just a machine or a vault. It was alive, and it wanted me. My uncle crawled forward, hands shaking as he reached for my legs. "Please," he begged, voice hoarse. "It's not yours to carry. That key doesn't belong in your blood. It belongs in mine. Give it back before it knows your name." The scarred man ripped him away, throwing him against a pillar with a sickening thud. "Shut up, coward. You wanted it buried. I want it free." He turned back to me, desperation spilling through rage. "Don't you see? This is power. This is destiny. Your father understood. That's why he kept us apart." I shook my head violently, tears stinging my eyes. My father wanted it hidden. He gave me the key to bury the truth, not unleash it. My voice cracked, but each word burned with certainty. My uncle's trembling nod confirmed it. The scarred man's face twisted, his scar pulling tight as he bared his teeth. "Then he made you his weapon without even telling you. You're too weak to wield it. But me? I was chosen." He lunged, his hand outstretched, claws reaching for the brass that glowed faintly in my palm. I staggered backward, slamming my shoulder against the wall, the key pressed against my chest like a shield. His fingers brushed mine, hot and desperate. But before he could snatch it away, the warehouse shuddered again. A fissure split open across the floor, belching steam and fire. The scarred man stumbled, nearly falling in. My uncle screamed as the heat scorched his face. And through the fissure, something reached, a hand, massive and skeletal, clawing at freedom. I screamed, the sound ripping from my lungs, echoing into the endless dark. The key burned hotter, almost branding me, as the hand slammed against the half-raised door, rattling its chains. Sparks showered us like fireflies from hell. The scarred man froze, his bravado extinguished by what he saw. His lips trembled, and for the first time, he couldn't speak. My uncle wept, rocking back and forth, muttering prayers that died on his tongue. I clutched the key so tightly it cut into my skin. My blood smeared across the grooves, dripping onto the concrete. And when the blood touched metal, the door roared. The whispers turned to screams. The ground split wider, the skeletal hand forcing itself higher, knuckles cracking like thunder. My chest seized as realization struck. It wasn't trying to escape randomly. It was reaching for me. It wanted my blood, my name, my place as its keeper. "Close it!" my uncle shrieked, his voice cracking. "You're the only one who can close it." His words pierced through the chaos. But how? The key was the only thing connecting me to the door, and I had no idea how to wield it. The scarred man grabbed me again, shaking me hard, spit flying as he screamed. "Don't listen to him. This is your inheritance. Take it, claim it, and no one will ever laugh at you again." His voice twisted, tempting, cruel. Tears blurred my vision, the heat suffocating me, my skin burning with every breath. My father's voice haunted me again, echoing in my skull. "The truth is always hidden in plain sight." My trembling eyes darted to the grooves of the key, now slick with my blood. And I saw it, another symbol, hidden beneath the stain. A circle split in two, a seal, a command. My heart raced as instinct screamed louder than fear. I raised the key high, gripping it with both hands. The whispers grew frantic, the skeletal hand thrashing against the door. My uncle sobbed. The scarred man snarled, but all I heard was the storm of voices rising from the pit. And with one desperate scream, I plunged the key into the lock. The warehouse exploded with light, blinding, searing, ripping through dust and shadow alike. The door groaned, the chains rattled, the fissure shrieked, my body shook violently, every nerve aflame. And then everything went silent. When the light dimmed, the skeletal hand was gone, the fissure sealed. The warehouse lay still, suffocating in its silence. I collapsed to my knees, the key smoking in my palm. My blood sizzled on its edges. I thought it was over. But then, a single voice whispered from the darkness, softer than breath, colder than death. "You belong to me now." The whisper slid through the warehouse like a blade dipped in ice. It didn't echo like a normal sound. It crawled under my skin, curling behind my ears. A voice meant only for me. I clutched the smoking key to my chest, the metal searing but not letting go. My lungs refused to fill properly. The air tasted like rust and ash. My uncle dragged himself backward across the floor, leaving streaks of blood on the concrete. His eyes were wide, staring not at me but at the empty fissure that had sealed itself. "It spoke," he rasped, voice breaking into a whimper. "It never speaks, unless it's chosen." The scarred man was on his knees too, but not from fear. He was trembling with something else: hunger, reverence, madness. His scar glistened in the dim light as he whispered to himself, "It finally has a keeper. It finally has a keeper." His fingers twitched, as if reaching for something invisible. I wanted to scream at them, demand answers, but the voice was still there, a cold breath against my thoughts. "You opened. You sealed. You're mine." 3 short sentences that felt like chains clicking shut. My chest heaved as I tried to shake it out of my head, but it was like trying to claw smoke. "I don't want this!" I shouted into the empty space, my voice bouncing back at me. My uncle flinched, covering his ears. The scarred man laughed, a wet, broken sound that echoed off the steel beams above. "It doesn't matter what you want," he said. "It chose." I staggered to my feet, every bone screaming. The key pulsed faintly, the engravings glowing with my blood. The light from it flickered across the walls, casting long, warped shadows of the 3 of us. Shadows that didn't move when we did. Shadows that watched. My uncle crawled closer, his face pale, hands trembling as he reached for my ankle. "You have to leave it here," he whispered, his voice desperate. "You have to walk away before it finishes binding you." His breath stank of iron and regret. The scarred man lunged, shoving my uncle aside, his eyes wild. "Don't listen to him. You've been given what we fought for all our lives. You can command it now. You can build an empire bigger than your father ever dreamed." His words struck like sparks against dry wood. My stomach turned. I saw my father's face in my mind, the way he'd looked at me the last time we spoke, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "The truth is always hidden in plain sight," he'd said. I had thought it was a riddle. Now I feared it was a curse. I backed toward the half-raised door, the key pulsing like a heartbeat in my palm. If he wanted me to command it, why didn't he tell me? I asked. Neither man answered. My uncle only sobbed. The scarred man only smiled. The whisper came again, softer but clearer, a soundless vibration against my skull. "He couldn't tell you. He feared me." The words weren't heard, but felt, like claws dragging across my mind. I bit down on my lip, the copper taste of blood anchoring me. I realized then that this wasn't just a vault, wasn't just a creature or machine. It was something older, deeper, an inheritance of will, not of wealth. And now it had tied itself to me. I was its keeper, whether I wanted it or not. "I can't," I muttered, shaking my head. "I won't." My voice cracked. My uncle reached up, clutching my pant leg. "You can still fight it," he said. "If you run now, before the seal hardens." His words cut off in a choked gasp. The scarred man's hand shot out, gripping my uncle's throat, lifting him like a rag doll. "No more lies," he hissed. "He belongs to it now. He belongs to us." My uncle clawed at his arm, wheezing, eyes bulging. "Stop!" I yelled, but my voice felt small, lost in the vast space. My hands trembled as I raised the key instinctively. Its glow brightened, the engravings burning white. The scarred man froze, his grip slackening on my uncle's throat. The voice purred inside my head. "Command, and he will fall." My breath hitched. I hadn't spoken, yet the key vibrated like it was waiting for my decision. My uncle slid to the floor, gasping, his eyes pleading. The scarred man stared at me, realization dawning. "You're linked," he whispered, awe and terror mixing in his tone. "It listens to you now." He dropped my uncle and stepped closer, palms open. "You can end him. You can end me. You can end everything. All you have to do is want it." I stumbled back, my spine pressing into the cold steel door. My father's voice roared in my memory now, louder than ever. "Don't use it. Don't speak to it. Don't let it answer you." His warning had been clear, but too late. My uncle crawled to my side, clutching my arm, his voice rasping. "Please, it's already inside you. Every second you hold it, the harder it will be to let go." His tears soaked into my sleeve. "I tried once. I failed. Don't repeat me." The scarred man's eyes flicked to the door, We're wasting time. The seal's not complete. If we move now, we can open it fully. We can take what's inside before it disappears again. His voice dripped with urgency, with greed. I shook my head, the key burning hotter, my blood running cold. You don't understand. There's nothing in there to take. It's already here. My voice cracked. The scarred man's smile faltered. My uncle shuddered. The whisper returned, louder now, filling every crack of my skull. You opened. You sealed. You're mine. Speak, and I obey. The words made me nauseous, my knees buckling. But under the sickness, something else stirred. Power, heavy and intoxicating. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to test it. My heart pounded so hard my vision blurred. My uncle's grip tightened, his nails digging into my arm. Don't, he hissed. Whatever you're thinking, don't. The scarred man stepped closer, lowering his voice to a velvet hiss. He's scared because he knows what you can do. With one word, you could crush me. You could crush him. You could crush the whole world. Your father built empires with scraps. You could build a throne with this. My stomach churned, but for a heartbeat, I imagined it. Silence in the faces that had mocked me. Power replacing humiliation. No more laughter at my expense. No more being the forgotten one at funerals. Just me, standing above it all. The key pulsed again, as if it could smell my thoughts. The whisper purred, softer, coaxing. Say it. Command. My uncle's voice broke through, trembling but fierce. If you speak to it, you'll never speak for yourself again. His eyes glistened with tears. It doesn't give power. It takes it. It takes you. I clutched the key tighter, my nails cutting into my palm. My breath came fast, uneven. The scarred man extended his hands like a priest before an altar. You're wasting destiny, he hissed. Give it to me. Let me show you. The voice inside me surged, louder now, almost drowning him out. He lies. They all lie. Only I am true. My knees trembled as the warehouse tilted around me. And then, without warning, the key flared bright as a star, the glow shooting up my arm, flooding my vision. I cried out, dropping to my knees. My uncle screamed my name. The scarred man lunged forward. The whisper turned into a single word, sharp and final. Choose. And the warehouse went black. Darkness swallowed everything. It wasn't the kind of dark that comes when lights go out. It was thicker, heavier, like ink poured into my eyes. My hands groped at the air, trembling, but I couldn't feel the floor. The key was no longer just in my palm. It was inside my chest, pulsing like a second heart. I heard my uncle calling my name somewhere far off, his voice muffled and warped, like he was underwater. The scarred man shouted too, but his words were jagged, torn apart by static. And through it all, the whisper remained, clear and cold. Choose. The blackness flickered. Images flashed before me, not with my eyes, but inside my mind. My father at his desk, pen scratching across a contract. My uncle younger, smiling with him. The scarred man watching from the doorway. All of them younger. All of them before the betrayal. The voice twined through the visions. He stole. He lied. He locked me. Now I am yours. Speak, and I will break them. Speak, and I will set you free. The temptation slid over my skin like warm oil. My humiliation at the funeral rose up in me like bile. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't obey. I floated in the dark, the visions sharpening. I saw my siblings laughing at the table, Robert sneering, my sister looking through me like glass. The whisper hissed, "Say their names. Watch them fall." My pulse thundered. "No," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I don't want this." The darkness pulsed, irritated, like a living thing denied. "You already chose by opening. You already belong." The words slithered deeper, pressing against my skull, my ribs, my spine. Then another voice cut through, faint but real. My uncle's voice, raw and desperate. "Fight it! Don't let it decide for you!" The sound cracked the dark like a pinprick of light. I turned toward it, clutching at the thin thread of reality. The whisper hissed. "He betrayed. He buried. He will take from you too." The blackness shifted, showing my uncle's face twisted in lies, the scarred man grinning behind him. A swirl of false memories, or maybe truths. I couldn't tell. I screamed, the sound tearing my throat. Stop showing me! My voice cracked the visions like glass. Pieces of memory rained around me, shattering into sparks. The light from them clung to my skin, warming it for the first time. The key burned hotter, the engravings glowing bright white inside my chest. I felt its shape, even without touching it. The circle split in two, the seal, the command. My father's voice rose from the shards of memory. Never speak to it. Never give it your name. Tears streamed down my face, though I couldn't feel my cheeks. Then how do I stop it? I shouted into the dark. The whisper chuckled, low and ancient. There is no stopping, only wielding, only giving in. My uncle's voice came again, louder now, echoing through the void. It feeds on will. Don't answer its questions. His words trembled, but held a strange strength. Make your own choice, before it makes you its echo. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. My choice, I whispered. The whisper hissed like steam. You have no choice. You are mine. The darkness surged, wrapping tighter, trying to squeeze the thought out of me. But another memory pierced through. My father on a rainy night, his hand gripping my shoulder, his eyes soft. The truth is always hidden in plain sight, he'd said. And suddenly, I understood. He hadn't meant the vault. He'd meant me. I reached inside myself, feeling for the key. It pulsed, angry, but I held it anyway. My blood on its grooves, my will on its weight. You're not mine, I whispered. And I'm not yours. The whisper froze, a hiss caught between breath and silence. The dark trembled. For a heartbeat, I saw both my uncle and the scarred man kneeling on the warehouse floor, their faces pale, eyes wide. The fissure sealed, the door locked. Only me standing in the glow, holding the key like a flame. The whisper came again, softer now but sharper, a blade sliding into my thoughts. Then, speak, release me, or command me, or die with me. Its edges pressed against my will, testing for cracks. I lifted the key, feeling its heat spread through my arms, into my lungs, my voice. My lips parted. My uncle screamed faintly. Don't! Not a word! His voice cracked like a plea from another world. The whisper purred, just one word. My breath hitched. My humiliation, my rage, my loneliness all coiled into a single point behind my teeth. Power buzzed under my skin, intoxicating and terrifying. I bit down hard, tasting blood. And instead of a word, I exhaled a sob. The key's glow flickered. The whisper faltered, surprised. Why won't you speak? Because it's mine, I said, my voice low but steady. My silence, my choice. The dark rippled like water struck by a stone. The whisper screamed, a soundless wail that made my skull ache. Light exploded outward from the key, shards of it tearing through the void. My uncle's voice roared closer, the scarred man's too, but I couldn't understand them anymore. The warehouse began to take shape again, beams and concrete flickering back into view. The whisper hissed a final word as the dark peeled away. You can't keep me quiet forever. Its promise crawled into my bones like frost. I slammed back into my body, collapsing onto the concrete floor, gasping, drenched in sweat. My uncle crouched beside me, clutching my shoulders. What did you do? He demanded, his voice shaking. The scarred man stood behind him, his face pale, his hands trembling as if he'd seen a god. It's not over, he muttered, eyes locked on the still glowing key. You only paused it. I raised my head slowly, the key heavy in my palm, its glow fading but its heat still alive. My voice came out hoarse but sure. Then we finish this before it wakes again. The warehouse shuddered once, a soft rumble underfoot like a distant growl, and from somewhere deep in the concrete, the whisper came again, so faint it might have been my imagination. Soon, my uncle's grip tightened. It's still bound to you, he said, until you choose what to do. His eyes darted to the scarred man, whose face had gone from hunger to terror. Outside, thunder rolled, closer than before, shaking the walls. Lightning flashed through the shattered windows. The storm had not passed. It was waiting. And before either of them could speak again, the key in my hand pulsed once more, and a line of faint light appeared on the floor, running from my feet toward a hidden door we hadn't seen before. The glow widened, cutting the concrete like paper, and from beneath it came a sound. Not a growl, not a whisper, but something else. Something calling my name. The glowing line on the floor pulsed like a heartbeat, stretching toward the far wall. Each flicker illuminated the dust in the air, tiny motes spinning like stars caught in a current. My uncle's fingers dug into my arm as he whispered, "It's opening another way." His voice cracked on the last word. The scarred man's eyes lit up, greed cutting through his terror. "This is it," he breathed. "The true chamber. He hid it from all of us. Even you." His hand hovered near the key, trembling. "We go now, before it closes." I knelt, running my hand over the glowing line. It felt warm, alive, humming against my skin. The whisper inside my head was silent, but its absence felt louder than sound, like a predator waiting, holding its breath. My uncle shook his head violently. "No, don't follow it. That's how it draws you in. That's how it takes you." His grip tightened, desperate. "You already survived the first seal. You might not survive the second." But the line widened, splitting the concrete with a slow hiss, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into darkness. A smell rose from below, damp stone, oil, and something older, metallic and sweet. My stomach clenched, as if my body recognized it. The scarred man stepped forward, his boots crunching glass. "He left you the key for this. All the rest was distraction." His voice was low, urgent. "This is where the real inheritance waits." His eyes burned with a hunger I'd never seen. I stood, the key heavy in my palm. "Or the real curse," I said, my voice hoarse. The glow from the stairs flickered across their faces, my uncle pale and broken, the scarred man almost luminous with obsession. The whisper returned, faint but clear. "Come down. Alone." The words brushed against my mind like cold fingers. My knees weakened, but my heart hammered. It wasn't calling them. It was calling me. My uncle clutched at my sleeve. "Don't listen. It wants you isolated. That's how it feeds." His voice was a rasp, close to tears. "If you go down there, you'll never come back up the same." The scarred man laughed softly. "He's afraid because he knows what waits. Power, boy. Not hunger. Power." He gestured toward the stairway. "It wants you because it's yours. Not his. Yours." I stared into the dark spiral. The glow from the key pulsed in time with the light below. My father's voice rose again from memory. "The truth is always hidden in plain sight." Was this the truth, or just another test? I tightened my grip on the key until its edges cut my skin. "If I go," I whispered, "I go on my terms." The whisper hissed, displeased. "Come down alone." The words sharpened, slicing my thoughts. My uncle dropped to his knees. "Please, don't. We can still end this here. Destroy the key, seal it forever." His tears hit the glowing line, sizzling as if the floor itself rejected them. The scarred man knelt too, but his eyes never left me. "If you destroy it, you destroy yourself," he said. "It's bound to you now. Your blood, your will, your silence. If you end it, you end you." I stepped toward the stairway. Both men reached for me but stopped short, as if an invisible wall held them back. The glow brightened, the whisper turning to a hum deep in my skull. "I have to know," I said, my voice trembling. "I can't live like this, not knowing." My uncle sobbed, his forehead against the floor. The scarred man smiled like a priest at an altar. The first step creaked under my foot, warm and wet, as though it had been breathing. The air from below wrapped around me, heavy and sweet, filling my nose with a scent I couldn't name. My skin prickled with 1,000 pinpoints of heat. The whisper purred, "Good." Its pleasure slid over my skin like oil. My grip on the key tightened as I took the second step. Then the third. The stairwell curved out of sight, swallowing the warehouse above. I glanced back. My uncle was clutching the pillar, eyes shining with helplessness. The scarred man watched, his smile fading as he realized he could not follow. His fists clenched. "Remember," he called, "whatever it offers, you take it. You take it all." I turned away from them, the stairwell closing like a throat. The glow dimmed behind me until only the key lit my way. My heart beat in time with it, a rhythm I couldn't break. Each step felt deeper than the last, like I was walking down years instead of stairs. My father's face flickered in my mind, then my uncle's, then the scarred man's, all younger, all older, all shifting like smoke. The air grew colder. The walls pulsed faintly, veins of light running through stone. Symbols appeared, etched into the steps. Some I recognized from the key's grooves. Others I didn't dare read. The whisper pressed closer, almost inside my mouth now. At the bottom waits what was denied. At the bottom waits what is yours. Its voice trembled with hunger, or maybe anticipation. I clenched my jaw, refusing to speak. My silence burned like a muscle held too long. My fists ached around the key. My breath came shallow, misting the air in front of me. Finally, the stairwell opened into a cavern vast and black. The glow from the key spilled across the floor, revealing rows of shapes covered in dust and cloth, lined up like sleeping giants. My stomach lurched. One of the shapes shifted under its shroud. A slow ripple of movement. My heart slammed. The whisper breathed, "They're waiting for you." I took another step, the sound echoing through the cavern like a drumbeat. The cloth on the nearest shape trembled, then slid off, revealing polished metal and carved faces staring up at me. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. Not machines, not coffins. Something in between. Eyes closed, hands crossed over chests. The key in my hand pulsed once, hard enough to numb my arm. The whisper swelled, filling the cavern. "Wake them." And from somewhere behind me, on the staircase, my uncle's voice broke through the hum. Hoarse, desperate, almost a scream. "Don't touch them!" I spun around, but the stairwell was empty. Only his echo remained, fading into the dark. And then one of the carved faces opened its eyes. The eyes that opened glowed faintly, like embers under ash. They weren't human eyes, but they weren't machine either. They looked like something carved from the oldest part of a storm. My breath caught as its lids lifted fully and locked onto me. The cavern pulsed once, like it inhaled. My knees threatened to buckle, but I stayed upright, clutching the key against my chest. The whisper inside me sharpened to a single thread. One word, one command, and they rise. It coiled behind my teeth, trying to push the sound out of me. I glanced around, heart hammering. Dozens of shrouds trembled as if a wind had passed, but there was no air moving. Each form was poised like a sleeper about to wake. My father's voice echoed faintly. "Never speak to it." I backed away until my heel hit the cold stone of the cavern wall. The key pulsed again, hotter now, sending small tremors up my arm. The glow in the creature's eyes brightened. Another set of eyes opened to my left. Then another. "They're not coffins," I whispered. "They're doors." My voice cracked on the last word. The whisper purred at the sound. "Say it louder. Say it true. Free them." Its hunger bled through my skull, cold and sharp. I clamped my mouth shut and shook my head violently. My uncle's echo from the stairwell reverberated in my memory. "Don't touch them." He had known. He had tried to warn me. A clang rang out behind me. I spun to see the scarred man at the base of the stairs, his face pale but triumphant. He had followed. His eyes burned like a zealot's. "This is it," he breathed. "This is what he promised." "Get out," I croaked, my voice weak but urgent. "You don't know what you're doing." He laughed, a sound full of reverence and madness. "I know exactly what I'm doing," he said. "You're too afraid to take it." "I'm not." He reached for the nearest shrouded form, fingers trembling. The whisper hissed, delighted. "Yes, let him. Let me." My heart slammed against my ribs, the key almost slipping from my grip. "Stop!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed by the cavern's hum. The scarred man's hand brushed the cloth. The moment he touched it, the glow in the eyes around us flared bright white. The floor shook underfoot. He stumbled back, eyes wide. It's alive!" he stammered, awe and terror mixing in his voice. "It's waiting." His words cut off as a pulse of light shot from the key into the nearest figure. The shrouds tore themselves away like paper in a storm. The figures beneath rose slowly, soundlessly, dust falling from their forms. They were tall, impossibly tall, carved in the shape of men, but not men at all. Their faces were masks of metal and bone. The whisper grew louder, filling the cavern. "Speak. Command. They are yours." It pressed against my mouth like a hand, trying to force the word out. My lips trembled. My jaw clenched. The scarred man fell to his knees, arms outstretched. "Take me," he cried. "I'm ready." The nearest figure turned its glowing eyes on him, tilting its head slowly. I stumbled forward, key burning in my hand. "Don't touch him!" I shouted. But the figure's hand was already reaching. It closed its fingers around the scarred man's shoulders. He gasped, a sound like his soul being pulled out. Light poured from his mouth, his eyes, his scar, streaming into the figure's chest. The whisper purred. Fuel. My stomach lurched, bile rising as his body went limp. I tried to run, but the key anchored me in place, its heat now searing. My uncle's voice echoed from nowhere, frantic. "Choose, before it takes you too." Tears blurred my vision. "I don't know how," I screamed. The whisper hissed, "You already do." Its words slid into my throat like smoke. The figures were all awake now, their eyes fixed on me. They didn't move closer, but their presence pressed in like a tide. My heart felt like it was breaking under the weight of their gaze. I dropped to my knees, clutching the key to my forehead. My father's words rose one last time, clear as if he stood beside me. "Silence is stronger than command." My lips parted. The whisper surged, ready to burst free. And instead of a word, I exhaled every breath left in me, a scream with no sound. The key flared blinding white. The figures froze mid-motion, their eyes dimming slightly. The whisper shrieked in my skull, "No!" It clawed at my thoughts, trying to dig itself back in. I forced my eyes open. The cavern glowed with light pouring from the key. My hands shook, blood dripping onto the stone. "I'm not yours," I whispered hoarsely. "And they're not mine." The whisper screamed, a soundless wail that made the cavern tremble. Cracks spidered across the walls. Dust fell like ash. The figures began to fade, their outlines blurring. I slammed the key into the ground. A wave of light rippled outward, knocking me back. The whisper went silent, mid-scream. The figures dissolved into dust, collapsing like statues crumbling under centuries. When the light dimmed, the cavern was empty. Only me on the stone floor, the key smoking in my hand, and the scarred man's empty body beside me, eyes blank, scar glowing faintly before fading to nothing. My uncle stumbled down the last steps, his face ashen. You did it," he whispered, voice trembling. "You broke it." I looked at the key, its brass now dull, the engravings faint. My voice came out low, cracked. "No, I just sent it back to sleep." The ground rumbled softly, like a growl beneath the world. My uncle's eyes widened. "Then it's still bound," he said. "To you." I rose to my feet, legs shaking. The key felt heavier than ever, its weight sinking into my bones. "Then I'll carry it," I said quietly, "until I find a way to end it." Above us, the stairwell flickered with faint daylight breaking through the cracks. The storm had passed. The air smelled of rain and iron. My uncle looked at me with something like sorrow. As we began to climb back up, the whisper brushed against the edge of my mind one last time, softer than breath. Soon. I clenched the key tighter, feeling its heat fade to a dull throb. My father's voice was gone. The cavern behind me went still. And as we reached the top of the stairs, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a debt that only I could pay. What would you have done differently? I asked no one, my voice trembling. Tell me in the comments. Then, louder, as we stepped into the gray light, like this story and subscribe. Because what happened after this moment was even more unbelievable.